Okay, we're ready to do final installation. There's one thing I want to show you right here. Here's the coil spring. Now, all I've done here is I've made a little isolator. I've wrapped some bicycle inner tube around both ends, and I just secured it for the time being with electrical tape. If that tape comes off down the road, which I'm sure it will, it really won't matter. The tension of the spring will hold this inner tube in place, and it is just regular bicycle inner tube. So all this is ready to go back in place now. So we'll start jacking up on our control arm and getting everything in place. Oh shit. Okay, we have a rather serious design flaw here. You can see the brake line is jammed right up against the spindle, and I'll pan out a little bit. I've got the caliper in place. There's no pads on it, but it is bolted in place. Not completely, but that's beside the point. It doesn't really matter. You can see how crammed that brake line is up against the spindle, the upper ball joint mount for the spindle. So I'm going to have to figure out something for this. This is rather upsetting. This is something that could easily be avoided in the manufacturing process. But I'll have to figure out a solution, and when I get that figured out, I'll show you. So here's the solution that I came up with. I actually had to disconnect the brake line here at the banjo fitting, and I bent this little section of hard line upwards. So now the brake line routes up and over the spindle instead of around the inside of the spindle. So I'm fairly happy with my work. However, I'm very disappointed that I actually had to do it. I really hate modifying brake lines like this. I consider this a fairly severe oversight in manufacturing. So I'll contact Chassis Tech and see what they say about it. I looked for the instructions. I couldn't find any. But anyway, this part's finished, so let's continue putting the rest of the suspension back together. Alright, we're just about finished up with this project. I got my new shocks in the mail today. Came with new upper mount. It does come with two bushings for the lower end. I pressed in the larger of the two bushings for the lower shock bolt. I got these from Classic Performance Parts. They are part number M1200G. So let's get all these new pieces installed, and we're about ready to put the wheels back on and set this back down on the ground. So the shock's installed. That's the last piece of the suspension. I'll have to do some test fitting. I still have 15-inch wheels. I'm going to throw those on there before I set this back down on the ground to make sure that I don't have any clearance problems with my lower control arms or upper control arms or brakes or anything like that. I still need to finish up the driver's side of the truck, and pretty quick we'll have this back on the ground. So one thing worth noting here, I've got the wheel and tire back on the truck, and you can see the very bottom of the lower control arm there, and I've only got about a quarter, maybe 5/16 inches of clearance between the lower control arm and the wheel itself. Now I'm running stock 15x7 wheels, so 15-inch wheels should clear, but if you're running a wide wheel or an aftermarket wheel, you may have some issues right here. So it's just something that was worth noting and something that I wanted to point out in this video. So that's pretty low there for the front. I'm really pretty happy with it. We still got the rear suspension to do, so we got quite a stink bug stance going on right now. So I'll get going on that rear suspension here in just a bit. But the front suspension is basically finished. I'm real happy with how it came out overall. I was pretty disappointed in those spindles. Like I showed you, I had that brake line problem, and then the dust shields, I had to wallow out those mounting holes quite a bit, particularly on the driver's side, because when I put the rotor on, the dust shield was not centered to the spindle, and the rotor was rubbing on the dust shield on the very inside on the hub. So that was a little bit of work. Wish I hadn't had to do that. So yeah, I'm not real happy with those Chassis Tech spindles. The rest of it, I'm real happy with. The shocks, the upper control arms, all the new steering. So that's it for this little video series. I'll get started on the rear, and you can watch that. And when I'm all done, we'll take a measurement of the front like we did before we did the drop. And likewise, we'll do measurement of the rear, and then we'll go to the alignment shop, and we'll get the whole drop suspension finished up. So for now, I appreciate y'all watching, and if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe.